What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Zero Access Footy. We are here with episode 15, and I am finally joined in the room alongside my co-host.
What do you mean?
Behm Gaddy. You missed last week.
Did I?
Dementia moment.
I don't
it's
think
a dementia
so.
moment.
I only remember being here last week. I don't remember being online.
You were here in spirit through the computer.
And physically.
We just chat shit about you behind your back. Anyways, with Zero Access Footy today, we're going to get started with our round 12 review. And of course, Macca's Man of the Week. We've got some other topics as well. We're going to go through, including some highs and lows for certain teams. And we're going to go through our mid-season power rankings, which is always exciting because we're always so on top of that stuff, are we not, Behm?
Definitely.
That's not foreshadowing at all, I promise. But let's have a look at the Thursday night game, our first game of the round. This one was one that was surprisingly close, surprisingly exciting. I had mentioned that one of these games it felt like was going to be the exciting one, and that wasn't the exciting one at all. Let's see, though. Thursday night at the Gabba. Lions only beating the Bombers by 18 points. Not a bad showing overall from the Bombers. A bit of a breakout as well for Nate Caddy, as some people will say. I think there was a lot to really like about it. I mean, I've always been one, and I was pretty confident that Brisbane wouldn't win this by much, although I do think I said 40 points.
No, check.
Nowhere near that. Though, that being said, Brisbane still aren't doing the thing that you'd expect them to do to those smaller teams and absolutely throttling them. But that's not to take credit away from Essendon. They definitely changed things up, I reckon, from that game against Richmond. And although they did win that one against Richmond, there was definitely some flaws that were just glaring out at you. This game, they seemed to fix those ones up and play them with a different type of game plan. Do you see much different?
Yeah, well, Brisbane started off really strong. And I think the first quarter, it sort of was like, yeah, they'll just be able to comfortably get the job here. And what we've seen out of Brisbane the last few weeks is that we know how talented they are and that they can go on a 10-minute stretch. We saw it in the Hawthorn game. We didn't quite see it in that North Melbourne game, but we've seen it where they just burst out and you cannot stay with them. We didn't really see this aside from that first quarter. And I thought the way Essendon were able to fight back was really impressive. You know, some of their younger players were quite strong. Caddy almost kicked 2 in a minute, and they were both would have been really good goals. One contested, grabbed the other, an over the head kick, which was awesome. But like Nick Martin looked really strong. I thought Jai Caldwell had a fantastic game. His
Those
third
two
quarter
were the best Essendon players on the night. That was for sure.
And I think obviously without their tools, they just performed really well. And there's very little to critique in this performance.
Yeah, and that's really good to see. Good on both sides, realistically. Hugh McCluggage topped the game with 41 disposals. Is fantastic, getting his hands all over the ball. And seemed to have a lot of pressure within it as well. So lots of positives all around the game, and that's all you can really ask for Thursday night games. So we'll move on to Friday night. And there was one big positive side and one big negative side.
Yes.
We'll have a bit of a glance at it because, like I said, we looked at it a lot last week. A lot of questions in regards to Sam Mitchell's side. How is he going to react and how is he going to game plan against the Collingwood side who was bringing in a bunch of players from the injury list and also was looking to upgrade their play from the previous week, despite them winning by 45 points. And it shows this one in particular how good Collingwood's structure is, because once those players, their best 22, or those players from their best 22 come back into the lineup, they're playing ridiculously clean football, efficient football, high pressure, all over the ground. So hard to find things to doubt with this team. And only one positive really for Hawthorn, and that was Ginnivan just doing his thing against his old side. Kicked 3, I think, in the first half. So he got himself involved and kept Hawthorn in it, but not much to show from the others.
No, definitely not. I think their system, as you said, was on top. The way they're just able to reintegrate anyone who's playing into this team is fantastic. Like, it doesn't matter who's playing. Billy Frampton steps up and is able to lock down any player he plays against. Jeremy Howe is fantastic at the age he is. Billy Elliott, his best season, a career season at the age of 33. Like, he's second in the Coleman right now. It's stuff you don't see from any other team. They just have an insane amount of experience, and it just allows their younger players to not need to do too much. You look at someone like Ned Long. He just needs to do his role, but he can excel at it at the same time. And that's why you see these players who are just able to support their system so well. They've got players like I think up to 13 players over 150 games of experience. Bobby Hill's going to be one more this week. That's insane. The next best I think I heard was Brisbane at like 130. Like, and they've drafted a heap of younger players, obviously, with their academy and father sons. Like, we just don't see this type of experience in a team. I think it will come back to bite them a little bit in the end of the year because they have injuries. But when their system is this good, it does not matter who's playing for them.
That's exactly right. I think while it is something to look out for, players like Ned Long, this is the best possible system for him to grow in. He has become such a clean player, but also such a rough guts type of player, one that wants to get into the pack, and you see it all the time. He's not afraid of contact, and you've got those more silky smooth players. You think of the Pendles, you think of the Nick Dacos, those ones who are much happier on the outside, kind of making things work from there. So they're working such a fantastic system. It's hard to find flaws. Their forwards who've been questioned did not really bring any negatives to them.
No.
Membry did his thing. Myercheck had a great game. You mentioned Jamie Elliott. Just so much to like if you're a Collingwood fan. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Who doesn't?
Next up, we move to Suns at the Gold Coast playing against Fremantle. And it depends how you look at this one as to whether you're excited or frustrated. Me, personally, I'm frustrated because I really thought the Suns would take this one. We know how strong they are at home. Freo, a lot of travel. They have been starting to show some signs. They were starting to show the team that we expected of them this year. And so my thinking was Gold Coast will win this one in a tough one because this team has just too much talent to be letting games like this up. And they did it again.
Yep.
I don't want to give them too much of a bad rap because at the end of the day, it's an 11-point loss against a side that does have finals contention in their mind as much as they've struggled throughout the year. But man, I just wish they could have just shut the door on any of the doubts in this one, won at home convincingly, and it just did not happen. And this was Sean Darcy's first game back as well, which I think you'll probably touch on a little bit, dependent on what your idea was, because I think the answer to that Luke Jackson's Sean Darcy problem, the hammer's in the coffin for this one. The nail's in the coffin for this one. We know the answer.
I don't understand how you can continue to persist with it, right? I remember a few weeks ago we were talking about Fremantle when they were on a really bad piece of form, and it came out that I think it was Hayden Young spoke to the media and he said, we want to win 60-70. It's exactly what they did. However, this type of football is not going to win you flags. It's just not. And having two ruckmen in Jackson and Darcy, it does not work together, right? Look how good Luke Jackson was on the weekend.
I was going to say, this game feels like the in spite of the ruck duo. Because give Freo their flowers. Brayshaw and Sarong played fantastic. Jordan Clark off the halfback was really good too. Shea Bolton is finally starting to wake up. It feels like now he's starting to get more into the swing of things with this Fremantle forward and midfield. And I don't even know if they played all that bad in terms of Gold Coast's best players. Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson both had themselves. Noah nearly had 40 disposals. Noah was really good. Noah's really good.
100%.
But I'm trying to find the outliers, really. Jared Witts, you didn't even play that bad either. Just didn't get around the ball as much as
I think
Luke Jackson did.
Yeah, well, Alex Pearce wasn't there, and I think the way they defended their tours, the Gold Coast tours are going to be an issue this year, I think. That's why I don't see them contending, because whilst Ben Long's been fantastic, he kicked 1 goal 3 this week, but Ben King still hasn't quite hit that I am the number one key forward, and every week I will be providing this type of service. And when you're paired with 15 gamers and Ethan Reid and Jed Walter, you sort of need to do that every week because you know at least one of them's not going to show up. And I think it's a bit of an issue where Ethan Reid hasn't really found his form, and I don't see the need to persist with him. They went with Ned Moyle this week, and he had 3 touches and 15 hitouts. They tried to match the dual ruckman.
I don't know why they did.
I know, it just doesn't work. When we're talking about the Jackson and Darcy issue, it's similar to Gold Coast because you just don't get a forward option. Like Ethan Reid, he's really good in the air, but he's so young, he's going to take time to develop. Jared Witts and Ned Moyle cannot play forward. Neither of them can. And Jackson is great around the ground, but Darcy cannot play forward. So you're just losing so much when you don't have one of them there. And I don't think it's necessary. Like, you could have very easily played anyone else in the forward line, and I think they would have had a better impact than what Ned Moyle would have had. but they went with, oh, we need to combat this. And Damien Hardwick never plays two rocks. He was infamous for playing Sean Grigg as the second rock.
Yeah.
It's not part of his system. So I don't see it working in the long term. But again, it's just typical Gold Coast. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Right? We see this so many times in every single year. At Gold Coast, they're looking really, really promising. And then they just give up this type of effort. Fremantle are great. Fremantle have really good performances in them as well. But I just think when you get it to a goal margin, I think their forward structure needs a bit of a rework. And I think getting more damage out of Ben Ainsworth is a really big key for them, because I think he can be a huge X factor to how they want to continue to play out this season.
Mm. We'll move on to GWS beating the Tigers by just 3 points. This should have gone the Tigers' way. This was a classic Tigers performance in that their grittiness and their willingness to just get into any game, no matter how people kind of perceive their play. It's typical of Richmond this year. However, GWS, despite the 4 points, need to count themselves very lucky for this one. And even then, it's hard to when you're a GWS fan with Callan Ward going down with what some people are saying is a career-ending injury.
It's career-ending because he's already said it's his last season. So any season-ending injury is career-ending.
Yeah.
But I think if you're GWS and Callan Ward doesn't go down with his injury, they don't win this game because you saw what he did at three-quarter time with that ref up, right? That shows that their system and their plays are just not playing up to scratch. They have gone super tall over the last couple of weeks, and with their backline especially. And if you want to continue talking about the game, I'll get up their list. But I just think it's really fascinating how tall they have gone. Actually, I've got it here. So they've gone Taylor, Buckley, Leeka Leah, Connor Iden as their backs. So you got Taylor, key back, Buckley, key back. Leeka Leah is more of a medium, but can also play as a key back. And then they've gone Connor Iden, who plays that medium defender. They don't have a genuine small. Ash and Whitfield are your two halfback flankers, right? So when you look at Richmond, they don't have proper key forwards aside from Lynch. It's all mediums. It's a John T. Fall and Thomas Sims. Those are both rookies. And then you look at the forward line. It's just not functioning. Aaron Cadman hasn't broken out. Jesse Hogan, he's been great when he's been on, but he's also been very off this year as well. Then you look at Jake Riccardi and Callum Brown as their two medium tools. They're not hitting the scoreboard. I mean, Callum Brown did a little bit, but they're just not providing enough options. And when you waste this year's Toby Green, who has been fantastic, when you're wasting Lockie Ash's best year, they just got Josh Kelly back. Harry Himmelberg's playing on the wing, right? That's basically 5 key defenders playing in your team. It's not going to work. When they are known as the Orange Tsunami, you need to have runners, and they simply don't have enough runners off the back.
I think in the sense of GWS, I think their forwards have probably been their highlight for the most part this year. I kind of disagree with the idea that
at times.
I get that, but you mentioned Callum Brown, even though he kicked 3 goals. You do have to take it into perspective with the fact that they're playing against Richmond. This should not have been a close game.
Exactly.
But Toby Green has been really good. Jesse Hogan is currently contending for Coleman, right? We got to kind of bring that into the idea. Sure, he's not winning it right now, and we'd love him to win it again, but he's up there, and that's something that we've got to keep in mind. Right, we give our flowers to Ben King, but he kicked 1 goal on the weekend in a losing side against Fremantle. So we've got to be fair with that. Jake Riccardi with the 2. I do agree that Cadman hasn't broken out the way we expected, but if he can do it in a way that Thilthorpe has, there's still plenty of time. There is still plenty of time for him. It's just the idea that, will the Giants be able to stick around with that? Do they think it's more worth moving him on? We'll find out. But this game, a lot closer than anyone expected, and it really should have gone to Richmond. Sydney being beaten by the Crows at the SCG by 90 points. Now, Swans are another topic we're going to talk about today because this was embarrassing from basically the get-go.
Yeah. We'll talk about Sydney a lot later. They're going to be a topic for discussion.
Do we want to talk about the Crows mainly for the moment?
We'll limit it to the Crows. I just think I backed in Sydney to win this game, and I regret that deeply.
Yeah.
I very much regret that deeply. But you just look at the way they blew past Sydney at every single stage. Like,
they're so heavily reliant, and like looking at the kind of the stat sheet. I know it's pretty basic to look at the stat sheet, but there's no one outstanding on Adelaide. No one on Adelaide
it was a great
played
team performance.
ridiculously well. But yeah, you have a look. Josh Worrell did really well. Isaac Cumming did well. Neil Bullen had his best game, it feels like, for a good while. Mark Keane was even up there. Lots of marks and all that. But what this game shows to me is that they look to try and, I wouldn't say replicate, but become their own type of, we need a win in different ways. We need to find new ways to get over teams, because that's how premiership teams win. That's how good teams win. They need to find different ways to beat teams. And this was them saying, all right, backline, it's up to you to step up tonight, right? Although Sydney's forward line isn't fantastic. Sorry, no, they're Sydney's forward line, because they're pretty low on that. I mean, they're relying on Aaron Francis, the poor buggers.
I mean, he's not playing, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that too. But at the same time, not many fantastic goal kickers for Sydney. Very, very heavily reliant on their two mains and Nick Blakey. Yep. At the moment, it's just a lot of questions for Sydney. And for the Crows, this was a nice little tester. I'm surprised it turned out to be a tester. I thought this would be a lot closer. This was a test to see whether their backline could stick up. And it clearly has. In terms of the forwards, I'm looking here. Rochelle with 3 and assist of the year.
Yeah,
Ben Keys,
fantastic.
3.
I think, Ben Keys' game, you've got to take notice of what he's doing, because he went to Blakey.
He always rides low.
Yeah.
You never notice it until he pops up.
He went to Nick Blakey, had 17 himself. I don't think Blakey got anywhere near it at a lot of stages, but Blakey only had 3 kicks. Let me just double check that. He had 5 kicks, 6 handballs, and didn't get
barely effective.
He didn't even get over 300 meters gained, right? Yeah. So he completely limited his output, which is fantastic. But then he gets on the scoreboard, right? Some of these players for Adelaide, they're not always reliant on Rankin, on Hinge, on those 3 key forwards. They're now getting the output from their smalls.
Key forward. Yeah, you said Hinge. You mean the key forwards as in Keys, Rochelle?
No, their key forwards as in Walker Tech.
Oh, they're big guys. Yeah.
They're now getting the output from these smalls that we talked about they were missing. I remember when we said a couple of weeks, the reason why I don't trust Adelaide key tools is because they don't have the small forwards, and we could potentially play Rankin more forward. They're now starting to do that, and Rochelle's back. And
that game from Rochelle was very much needed. It's not an outstanding, crazy score sheet.
He backed up a really good week last week, which is what he hasn't done before.
Yep. It's exciting times for the Crows. Then we move to the next game, which I'm sure you want to skim past quickly.
Yay.
D's. Oh, no, sorry. You wouldn't want to. I read that wrong.
You're an idiot.
D's defeated by the Saints. Sorry, I read that the wrong way. I apologize. The Saints getting a bit of a get back. All momentum against them, considering how well the Demons have been playing. And it all goes well at TIA. Let me know how you thought this game played out in as little words as you possibly can, because I know you've probably got a lot to say.
Go Saints.
That works.
You said as little words as possible.
Fantastic. Let's go to the...
No, let's not move on. No.
Go on.
No.
Give me a little bit. Go.
Going into this game, I was absolutely shitting myself.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the form, because I Pickett was in. You look at the form, Max Gawn was in. The way Jake Melksham went to Harris Andrews and locked him up, I thought the exact same thing would happen to Callum Wilkie. And you look at their halfbacks, Salem and Bowie, in really good form. And we didn't have a single forward against May and Lever. And we still won.
It's the beauty of being a Saints fan, isn't it?
Correct. It's the duality of success.
Yes.
Great one week. Don't want to speak about it the next.
And then the 9th overall pick.
It could be 13 this year.
It could be.
But I think you look at the game of Marcus Wintaker. He's had a couple really poor weeks recently. But at the start of the year, he was on the tagging duty. And he did it against Holmes at 25 and 2 goals. Kept Holmes down to 20. Did it this week as well. And kept Pickett quiet as fuck. Pickett got nowhere near it.
At least not as much as he has been previously.
No. Just nowhere near it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't notice him there. And Windy himself had 28 touches, right? And he went at 90% efficiency. So for him, this is a huge game. And I think for Ross, it shows this is his role. We're missing McRae in the midfield still because we don't have that grunt. And we had 100 more disposals and still struggled to get it inside 50, which is still a concern because we still don't have that link up forward. But I think Hunter Clark played that role really well. He was sort of that forward, small forward who comes up to the stoppage and helps provide that extra number. And he was sort of sitting out the front. And I think he was very physical, which I never see from Hunter Clark. And it's something you guys could have used if you had traded for him a couple years ago. But I don't know if he would have done that role for you. I just think for him, this is a huge game because he showed that he can be good enough for this team, 100%. And I've been a huge fan of him because I think the way he is on the ball is really impressive. The way he's able to break tackles is something we don't have elsewhere. And so I think this game for him and for Marcus Wintega, two mids who don't always get the amount of time that they think they deserve, I think is really impressive. And look at the way Cooper Sharman competed, really great. Isaac Keeler, 3 goals, could be in the line for a Rising Star nomination. And Dan Butler kicked 4 goals on return.
Fantastic.
So screw you, Melbourne.
What a way to end it. I like it.
You guys can sit in the dire states of the AFL world once again.
Don't act like you haven't been there for the last, 10
Well, yeah, that's why I can dish it out.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't argue with that.
No, and you guys are in the dire straits.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Eagles being beaten by the Cats, really nothing surprising here.
If you go back and watch what I said when we were predicting this last week, you said how much of the Cats going to win. I was like, 49. So I was like, really good game.
Please kick
for
a goal.
49.
Please kick a goal.
Genuinely, this was an awesome game to watch for the first 3 quarters.
What, was it actually competitive?
It was. It was within 2 goals for 3.5 quarters.
I did not watch it.
How am I doing a football podcast with a bloke who doesn't watch football?
Because it's Geelong versus West Coast. They shouldn't be close.
But this is why this is the game you should watch.
No, I already have to deal with awful football with my team. I don't want to have to deal with more awful football.
But this wasn't awful football.
I'm surprised.
It was high energy. It was good, quick transitions. And I was really surprised with the way the West Coast system held up, especially in those first 2.5 quarters. Oh, sorry, from halfway through the first quarter to the end of the third. They kept up with Geelong. And I think, given they were so young, they were arguably better because they were stronger. They were more convincing than what Geelong were for those 2 and a bit quarters. Geelong were cleaner. Geelong were able to capitalise more on the ball they had. They weren't turning it over as much in positions you shouldn't be. But I think this is a really promising 3-quarter performance from West Coast. They stayed with them. And aside from the last 8 minutes of the game where Geelong just kicked away, they were in this game up to their neck. Like, seriously in this. You look at the likes of what they didn't have at both ends of the ground. There was no Waterman and no McGovern. And they still stayed within 2 goals for a lot of this game. I think there is so much promise. Their handball game was fantastic. They were just releasing and going. Like, look at what Ruben Jinby did on Jeremy Cameron aside from the last 5 minutes. He kept him to 1 goal. Look at what Harry Edwards was doing to Shannon Neal. With the ball delivery going inside their forward 50, West Coast defended really impressively. So I think for this type of performance, applaud them 100%.
Fair enough. I've seen these types of performances a few times where lower teams get kind of passed over, and I passed them over because of the end result. But yeah, fair enough. Anyone in particular that stood out for you for West Coast? Or was it a full team effort?
Full team effort, I think.
Fair enough.
It just, with the handball game, you get everyone involved. And I think that was really impressive.
Yeah, because the only ones that I'm seeing here, the obvious Bailey Smith, he looks to be a potential front runner now for Brownlow. I think I've seen him and Jordan Dawson so far. Dacos is slowly creeping back, but honestly, his teammates around him could be stealing votes from him. Brian Myers had a fantastic game. Cameron obviously kicked the 5, but a bit of a fraud 5.
Yep, 100%.
But that is just about it for our round 10 review. Now we're going to look at my personal 3 best players for the round. Macca's Man of the Week returns once again. Sponsored by absolutely no one, especially not Macca's. Macca's Man of the Week this time. As you all know, I like to try and give this to someone a little bit new every time, so the end-of-year result's going to be a little interesting. This could go to someone completely random, but that's the fun of it.
That is.
3 places, as per usual, 1, 2, and 3. In 3rd place, we've got ourselves Callum Wilkie. That'll make you happy. I know it will. Incredible performance. You had mentioned in the fullback position, getting 30 disposals is insane.
Yep.
13 or 15 marks? 15 marks.
Don't worry,
just
I got his stats down pat. Don't
yes,
worry about
I
it.
can tell. But overall, the fact that he was able to put so much of an impact on a pretty red-hot Melbourne forward line at the moment is something that should be applauded and has received a 3rd place vote. You could give it to some others, but I'd heard some negatives about Nas this week, and that is disposal efficiency, or he tries to do too much, something like that.
Did you say Lil Nas?
No, I said no. I didn't say that at all. Where did you get any of that? I said Nas. I said Nas.
Nas.
Shut up, bro.
It's
Your
Nas.
team sucks.
It's Nas.
Your team sucks.
It's Nas.
But
on your point,
third.
Okay, never mind.
Callum Wilkie is third. That's all you need to worry about.
Leave it.
Second place in a bit of a gutsy win, we've got Hugh McCluggage. Crazy game, 41 possessions from him. Definitely needed all 41 of those. That man had to work at overtime, basically, for how much of a fight Essendon was giving them. And then first, I saw this game, and I just couldn't not think about how well this guy was playing. Steel side bottom.
Steely.
He has been fantastic. Jeez. Reached the 200-goal milestone for the club as well.
Nice.
So,
good on him.
Fantastic performance from him and realistically the entire team. But just outstanding to see the man at that point in his career still putting up man of the match performances, and in a game that was very, very exciting. We were very excited to see this one come through. Obviously, the game itself wasn't, but for the moment, he did his thing and did it superbly. So
yeah,
I hate you, Ethan. That's mainly the reason why I bring that up, because I hate that Collingwood are good again. What? Just doesn't make me happy.
I'm so lost.
Macca's Man of the Week, everybody! Yay! I love Macca's Man of the Week. Don't move on to this. I know why you've moved on to that so quickly, you bugger.
He's an urgent little man.
But we do have to talk about the
Collywobbles.
The Collywobbles, but it is quite the opposite. They played almost to a T. They played so well. And we call it Hollywood Collingwood because, yeah, how else do you describe a team that can hit players basically every single time they enter inside 50, making top 4 contenders look like bottom 4 players? Like, this was such a scary performance to watch. Scary in the fact that I haven't seen a team play that perfect in a really long time. Like, the best teams of the last few years have looked good, but not that good. That looked insane. We saw our flaws with Sydney during that year. We saw our flaws with Collingwood even in their 2023 premiership year, the amount of times that have to come back from deficits. This team, other than GWS in the very opening round, where have you been like, okay, this team has got some internal problems?
Yeah, 100%. We mentioned it earlier that their system is literally perfect right now. It is functioning regardless of who's there. And actually, the only question I have is, are they peaking too early?
Yeah.
That is still the only question I have. Like, you said the perfect game. Why is it happening at round 12? Like, you don't really want to see it now.
I understand what you're saying,
That's my only
but
concern.
Can you really... Yeah, I get why it's a concern, maybe. Maybe not I can't say it as a criticism.
No, definitely not as a criticism.
Especially the amount of times that we've kind of pondered, is this the down week? You know, all teams have a down week. They just haven't had it yet.
Yeah.
They've had, one other loss from memory? They've got one loss. Their second loss was against the Cats at the MCG. And that was a close game. That literally took a Jack Crisp miss after the siren to lose that one. So you could have your doubts with that one, but that is a top 4 contender they've lost to, and a really, really close one. Yeah, just no questions that I've really got. I think this team... And I think a lot of people always had the idea that they're the real deal, but it's not just the real deal with their best 22. It's now the depth of their list is also growing.
Yeah,
it's got insanity at this point.
Their top 30 arguably is fantastic and would fit it into most teams.
But it's credit to Collingwood's structure.
100%.
I'll mention here as well, they did have their 5 main ins with Pendlebury, Schultz, Hill, Moore, and Sidebottom all coming in for this one. But let's not doubt the fact that this team structure has allowed them to be able to play without them for the last couple of weeks. So I think it was Pendlebury out for 1, Hill out for 1, Moore out for a couple, Sidebottom out for a couple, Maynard's out now as well. He didn't come into this game, so there's still...
Neither is De Goey.
Yeah, De Goey. There's still got so many players who can fit in, and this whole team structure has allowed the players, like Ed Allen is getting a bit more time, which is good for him. You're looking at Ned Long is the poster boy for this team at the moment. He has been so good at every point. Darcy Cameron's having potential AA
100%.
year.
It's fantastic. Like, and you look at their small forwards, right? Well, this isn't just on those small forwards, but 37 tackles to 6 in the forward half is a huge stat. They had 45 more tackles in general over the night, which was the most since 2014.
It's the pressure. It's the pressure all around. Maybe that's why it looks so perfect.
Yeah, 100%. They just didn't allow Hawthorn any time. And something that I've noticed, especially over the last month and a bit, is their efficiency inside 50 is outrageous.
Do you remember Scott Pendlebury's kick to someone on the inside 50, skipped between two Hawthorn defenders on the money to, I think it was Elliott or Myercheck. There was a certain kick inside 50 that had to leap two Hawthorn defenders but couldn't go too far, or the Hawthorn defender behind him would spoil it with no problems. It was so perfect. And when I saw that, I'm like, this is unbelievable. And it's not all to that extreme, but it's just clearly showing that Collingwood's not only just general experience around the ground, but their premiership experience is taking them to these big moments and leading to such incredible results. I am interested, however, as you've mentioned, to see if this team has peaked early or what round is their drop-off. Do we know who their upcoming matchups are and who will give them the biggest test? Because this team feels like it's been tested maybe once or twice.
Who they've got Melbourne this week, if I am not correct.
I think you are, but
let me just check their fixture and their upcoming fixture.
yeah, I believe it's Melbourne. So we think it should be an easy one there.
Not easy, but they'll start favourites for sure.
Absolutely. No, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so Melbourne by St Kilda. They'll lose to St Kilda.
You're just waiting to see a loss.
Yeah, 100%. They'll lose off. They'll lose off a bye. 100%,
then they play West Coast.
Yeah,
so that could get a bit
then
scary.
It's
at
Carlton,
Marvel.
Gold Coast, Freo.
What a weird game. Collingwood versus West Coast at Marvel. Collingwood home game at Marvel?
Happens occasionally.
I guess so.
2 home games at Marvel in a row is weird.
Of course he has this stage.
How do you have this? How do you have this?
How did you do that?
So quickly as well.
So for those who don't know, our producer is a Collingwood fan, so I feel like there's a reason he is so on. We previewed the slides before this started. So this was added.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised I haven't heard anything in my ears yet.
Why is it Flag Pies 2025?
Oh, no.
No, we're going to skip Collingwood now.
You've
ruined the segment. Look, Collingwood playing well, but he's ruined the segment.
I'll say something outrageous to cut this.
I'm going to say something absolutely horrific to make sure that this part is not in the
cancelable.
Anyways,
Footy.
We move from the positives of
to
Collingwood.
A team we mentioned we'd talk about in Sydney. Wow. Drop off. Hey!
Stop showing
Hey! Get this out of here. See how that's a 2023? It's the last time you guys will ever do it.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
66, anyone?
Shut up.
Guess who we beat in that grand final?
Oh, my God.
You probably don't even know. Shows how bad you are at football knowledge.
Anyways, Sydney. This is a team, we mentioned we want to talk about them, but we want to find, we got to pinpoint where this is going wrong for them because there's some obvious ones and some not so obvious ones.
Yeah.
So, the most obvious one for me is their heavy, heavy reliance on Heaney, Warner, and maybe Blakey, but specifically Heaney and Warner. Grundy has had good games. Speaking in particularly, we're talking about this most recent game against Adelaide. He was their best performer, but that clearly hasn't impacted them that well, hasn't done enough. They've lost by 90 points to an Adelaide Crows side that had questions themselves, and we know they're a good team, but it's not just this one, it's many a times now. The least obvious ones, new coach. I don't think that gets mentioned as much because you've got your headliners of Nowhere or Gordon as well. That's another one that a lot of people will talk about. But Dean Cox, is this going to be something that he can find a fix for this season, keep working with? Or do we think that as time goes on, we'll start to find fixes soon? Because this season, I feel like needs to start getting better soon or they're going to lose Warner.
He's already signed. We've talked about this. He's signed a 2-year deal.
Oh, that was stupid. Oh, no. I'm going to get cooked.
I question myself
I'm
every
about to get
time.
cooked
Acting
online,
like
bro.
people watch this podcast. Who's going to cook you? Ethan?
Yeah, that's enough for me. I already hear enough from him. Yeah. But, okay. Warner's re-signed.
Hey?
Great for him. Where do the other questions arise then?
Okay. I want to pose this. A lot of talk has happened about their injuries. every team has injuries. Understand you got Goulden, you got Papley, like there's Mills has been out, Adams has been out at times. But just because you got some injuries doesn't mean your entire system fails.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you've got so many key injuries and it's a new coach bringing in, your system isn't necessarily fully developed and it isn't fully understood by a lot of the players if he's made proper changes to it. And so you get that bit of imbalance. Players thinking, oh, we've got to do this, but then remember, never mind, we're in a new system. This is what we're meant to do. And so you get one mistake and that can ruin an entire system. Ross Lyon was infamous for this. If one player gets his tackle broken, the system fails. So systems are so heavily reliant for the players and for the coaches to be able to set up the game for them to win. They haven't set up any game for them to win, realistically. A lot of them have been comebacks, right? And you look at the Carlton game. They came back. Carlton obviously below the leads, whatever. But aside from that North Melbourne game, there aren't too many Sydney-type performances that I've recognised throughout this year. And then you look at the fact that their key position players are out, but their role players simply aren't good enough. And Peter Adams has done an all right job. Aaron Francis had one good quarter. And otherwise, they've been relying on Hayden McLean, or they've been relying on McLean and Amati. McDonald hasn't played a single game.
Will Hayward's been all right.
Hayward's had a good year,
Yeah.
100%. But the movement of McCartan isn't good enough. Like, you just cannot move a player who needs to lock down that position and be a key position player that you build your team around. Like, it just ruins everything around you. And then some of the players, the younger players that you would have thought this is their year with all these injuries, they're going to break it open, right? Braden Campbell hasn't developed. Ollie Florett, they've been the same player for 5 years, right? Angus Sheldrick, he's someone who has had it the time now, but hasn't shown the signs. These are players that you're like, no Goulden, no Papley, no Mills, no Adams. Here's your opportunity. They just haven't taken it. And that's been an issue. You've got Sam Wicks taking it as a key small back.
Yeah.
It's not going to change your team forever.
It's not enough.
Exactly. And then you look at the form of Warner and Heaney. It's, again, inconsistent.
Yeah.
So there's nothing consistent about this team right now. And when you combine that all together, and in the abysmal display they displayed against a good team in Adelaide.
At the SCG.
At home as well.
That's a really big thing.
When
I
your
think,
team's
because
cheer...
SCG is usually a
their
place
home
that's tough
ground.
to play at.
Yeah. When your team is cheering for you to win, to score points, you know you've hit the mud. You know
you're in some tough times at the moment.
I'm sure you've had the exact same experience.
Absolutely. We look at these ones. Okay, I guess we won't look at those ones. That's fine. Yeah, whatever. I guess.
Thanks, Ethan.
But which ones here do we realistically believe? Because I'm seeing 3 here that they could really put up a fight, if not win.
Yeah, they can still be competitive in any game they play this year. But if you look at the off-season and why they should be competitive,
Hell, I didn't say there's 4 here.
There's not a lot of signs for them to say, yes, we need to win out this game. They're realistically, if they're going to bring in someone, it's not based off of the success of this year. You look at their draft. If they could get a top 4 pick, they've got Max King. They would trade that away because they need to get some really good picks. I think they've got 2 in the top 20 and then a couple in the top 40, between 20 and 40, that they're going to be able to use to bid on him. But they could get a Kerno, or they could get a Ugle-Hagan with that top pick, as well as a couple others that could help fix that key forward position.
Ooh, he's feeling it today. A couple of those today.
Yeah, had a few.
What does that mean? Keep going. We're a serious footy podcast, I promise.
Yeah, we're serious. Are we really serious?
We have zero access. We've got to be as serious as we possibly can. I'm not being part of a schizo edit. Keep talking. All right, fine, I'll talk.
No, I'm joking. I talked about this. I talked about this with my Carlton friend because there's been rumours about Sydney going for key forwards. Should they trade away Harry Mackay? And Sydney was an option. You could get pick 4 or 5 and a couple picks in the teens.
I'll be dead honest. If Carlton got pick 4 for Harry Mackay, that's insane.
Coleman medalist.
I get that, but Coleman medalist how many years ago?
4.
That's a long time in footy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not wrong. But again, it's just finding options. They could very easily beat Richmond. They could very easily beat Port. They could then lose to Sydney and Bulldogs and then beat St Kilda and North Melbourne. So 4-2. I think that takes them to if I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
they've got only 4 wins so far. I think they've got
They're
16
4 and
points.
7, I believe.
Yeah.
Or 4 and 8. No, 4 and 8. So going 4 and
That
2,
brings
that
them
takes
to
them
8 and 10.
8 and 10, right? You win 5 games in a row when Gould and Papley are back. That's almost making finals. So it's not completely over. It would be a miracle, but we have seen it from Carlton and GWS a couple of years ago.
That's why one of my questions is it worth them writing
No.
this year off?
No. Yes. Worth writing the year off? Yes.
So is there a chance at all that they make finals?
Yes.
But
it's not
you
worth
would
it.
rather them take the draft pick.
See what you can get for pick 5.
Yeah.
Because you know you're going to get Max King anyway, who's a Heaney 2.0, according to Dylan Alexander.
Quote.
Not my
on this
opinion.
podcast.
Not my opinion.
Please do not go after me.
According to ZAF 2025.
Quoting us like we have any kind of like.
We've got credibility.
Yeah, man.
For how long?
Yeah, not very long. Did we ever have it?
Ethan, shut up.
Yeah, you're the producer. You need to just calm down back there, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I feel like we've said enough about Sydney.
Yes.
We've got our questions and we've got our opinions.
Why? Why?
Stop trying to take over the podcast.
I need to take over the podcast with Behmy's Tribunal task.
Yes, here we go. This is your time to shine, my friend.
Yeah.
Let's go. What have
So-
you got?
We are starting off with the review of Alex Pearce and his overturn, we'll call it. Well, yeah, it is an overturn at the,
Yeah, no need
at
for
the
quotation
tribunal
marks.
last week. And I was on the side of the MRO giving this 3 weeks. I thought the way he went to the ball and the way he tried to contest, I'll say, Darcy Byrne-Jones taking the mark, I don't think was good enough. And I thought that it was a fair enough decision. It was graded as careless, severe impact, and high contact, but the tribunal disagreed, dismissing the charge. Let me just read here. Pearce told the tribunal he had no choice but to impact the contest, and that's 100% fine. As a player and a defender specifically, you should be making a contest and forcing the player either to the ground or getting the ball out of his hands. I argued that the way he did that and the way he pulled out of it was not in a way that was providing duty of care to Byrne-Jones. It was more so, I've made a bad decision here. I'm just going to continue to run into him. There was no aspect that he was protecting himself or protecting Byrne-Jones. I thought that he could have improved that, which is where I thought I agreed with the decision. Then the tribunal counsel said he should have shirked, which is what I said. He said, yeah, it would not sit well with me if I was to pull out of that contest and not impact it. Impact the contest. But A, you were late. B, you didn't protect yourself. And B, you didn't protect the player. That's where I thought that he should have been suspended. And clearly they disagreed. He said he was aware there was going to be collision. At that point, I dropped my left arm and braced for impact. You drop your left arm, that doesn't do anything when your left arm's below.
I was going to say,
Byrne-Jones.
that's the same thing that's happened with Connor Nash, the same thing that happened with Dan Houston. They've dropped their arm and they've argued to protect themselves. So that's where most of my questioning comes with this one. How the hell did this get changed?
I know. Like, he's just saying, yeah, I protected myself. But you still concussed him. So they've gone from the
And
Maynard.
I was going to say, that's my main confusion.
Yeah.
All year, my problem has been, and realistically, I should be happy about this.
I
My
know,
problem
the
all year has
same.
been, it's always outcome based.
Mhm.
And it's kind of where I thought this was going. So the fact that this has changed to a completely, I think they had no option. If they were to say he was innocent, they have to
Mhm.
wipe it completely. But I just couldn't believe that they reversed it, because it's just the opposite of what they've done all season
I know.
so far.
It's very bewildering to me.
And it happens every single year. Do you remember the
Literally.
year when, was it last year or the year before, when like Bedford and I think it was Cameron as well, there were a whole bunch of people in the same week where they all got 3 weeks. Everyone expected them to go off, and then they all got off, just randomly throughout the season.
That was the one that Cameron got off because it was a good bloke. That's the one that I remember. With the tackle on
I think
Jake
it was the
Hoover.
same week that the Toby Bedford 3
Yeah,
weeks
potentially.
got let off as well. But just randomly out of nowhere, midway through the
I
season,
don't.
all of a sudden, they get let off for
I-
something that
I
it feels
don't
like
get it.
others have been done.
And I want to compare this one to one from 4 years ago, and this one's close to my heart. This is where I sort of got started on the tribunal shit. It was Hunter Clark on David Mackay. We don't have the footage, but it was a really contentious one. And I don't remember there ever being a lot of media talk about should this be suspended, should this not. From what I remember, it was Clark. I can't remember who was running back with the flight, but he was sitting under the ball. And then David Mackay just out of nowhere comes flying in. And whilst he sort of is going for the ball, at the same time it's reckless. He hasn't provided a duty of care to the player sitting at the ball, who was first to the ball, and he has completely broken his jaw. So there is head-high contact. It is severe contact, and it is a careless injury. They did not grade it as anything. There was nothing about that, and he did not get any suspension for it. You look at this one, it's careless contact. It probably wasn't severe, but it was high impact, and it was high contact because he got concussed. That's 3 weeks. But again, this got thrown out. So if this was 3 weeks, then that one's probably 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, but that got 0. Within 4 years, they've completely changed how they do it, to where it was nothing, and then it was something, but then got thrown out. I am so confused by the system. And I thought they did a couple good ones last week, which included this one. They made a couple good decisions, but no, they just threw it out. But yeah, so this was the 2 images.
How are you doing these so quickly?
Really good point. You probably won't be able to find the footage, but giving you a challenge.
Here we go. Here we go. I can hear
Your
him typing
challenge.
up like crazy back there.
Exactly. You could just hear the engine swear.
But understood, this one was a very, very weird situation.
Very
in that
weird.
I don't think anyone expected him to get off, and he's gone and
Yep.
done so.
Yeah.
And like
There-
I said, I wish there was a clear understanding from the get-go, not just to the players, but to the fans as to what the AFL is doing about it this season. You think it's this way. The fans have eventually caught on. Everything is getting 3 weeks.
Mhm.
You have to take care of the player. Anything careless, pretty much, will get yourself a couple of weeks. And then this happens and throws everything into a mess because now, hell, as a North fan, I wish Paul Curtis got off because I'd be like, he's just trying to impact the contest. What, you're going to tell him he can't impact the contest? You've got to let him go?
You're going to tell him he can't tackle?
Yeah, exactly. Because that feels like exactly what Alex Pearce has done
Yeah.
here, and he's gotten off with it. So,
It's so dumb. But
yeah, I wish
there-
they just stuck to what they knew and
Yeah.
let everybody understand from the get-go,
Correct.
this is how we're doing it this year. Then I'd be like, sure, I may not like it, but at least I know it's going to be the case with everybody.
If we knew there was a set of guidelines that they followed that was actually somewhat understandable, then we'd at least know where they're coming from. But we
Yeah.
don't. There was another one that was contentious on the weekend, and that was Lloyd Meek's hit.
No, here
Do
we
we
go.
have it? Do we have it?
He's trying.
Has he done
it's
it?
loading pretty hard. Keep talking
Okay.
about your other ones. Oh my god.
Oh,
I
no
think
way.
he's actually got it.
Also,
That's
notice
a rare
that
occasion.
we lost that game.
Oh, Jesus. I do remember the hit. I do remember it. He's going for
was-
the ball, pushed in. Yeah.
So, gone past the ball and literally breaks his jaw. Clark gets there first. Mackay does no longer go for the ball, and he got 0 weeks for it.
And he leaves the ground too.
Leaves the ground, doesn't go for the ball, hits him high, severe contact because of the broken jaw. 0 weeks. Thank you very much.
How the times have changed.
Yay! Anyway, Lloyd
What the
Meek.
hell is this?
Yeah, this was
Oh,
the Lloyd
okay.
Meek one.
Okay. I was going to say, why is there Collingwood on the screen
Yes.
again?
Hey, this is a Collingwood player getting concussed.
I'm surprised this
I'm not
hasn't got like a
celebrating that.
live edit of Ethan like just absolutely going
You just
at
see
Lloyd
Ethan
Meek.
in the background.
Like a react video. Just he's going to link a petition up next to ban Lloyd Meek from the AFL.
He didn't get banned, though. That's the thing.
Mhm.
He got 0 weeks, which is actually good.
Deserved.
It was late. It was late. But he actually didn't make enough contact to the head or to Lipinski to the point where he was concussed was from his head hitting the ground. It's a bit hard to really judge how much that is Meek's fault. Yeah, look at my chin. Just cut straight off. But yeah, I agree with the Meek one. Another more contentious one was the Daniel Rioli one where he got pushed by Bolton into Andy Brayshaw, who was also falling over. This would give a nothing, which I think is fair. Couldn't really blame Rioli too much for it. His momentum was increased by Bolton, and the hit was almost forced into being high by Brayshaw falling down. But there was one more that we can talk about, which is Aiden Johnson. This hasn't been graded yet, but I'm doing a prediction one for this.
Yeah, go for it.
He hit Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller high. It was a late bump. He jumped off the ground. I am going to go careless conduct. I'm going to go high impact, and I'm going to go high contact with a grading of 3 weeks.
Someone had mentioned this was like one of the worst hits they've ever seen.
Completely on. I would argue this is intentional.
Mm.
I would very easily argue this is intentional. Ain't
What?
no way.
Surely not. You've
Ain't
already got
no
it.
way.
There is
You
no
could
way
not have found
you
this.
cooked up the Aiden Johnson bump already.
You could not have found this.
Producer Ethan is on one this week.
I think this might be 3 votes E right. Honestly.
3 votes, producer Ethan. To be
Oh.
fair, the video's not coming up, so maybe not.
0 votes E right. You've been suspended.
You've been subbed, mate. You've been subbed out.
You've been subbed out, and you do not deserve to be in the man of the week. Okay.
All right, that's where we're going to end. Maybe we're not.
Maybe not.
What the hell is
Why are we
this?
watching the wash up? Ethan?
We
Have
don't
we
have
got
access to this.
producer?
We can't
Producer?
we can't afford to pay for this. I don't think it's going to work. Either way,
Okay.
we're going to move
Whatever.
on to the power rankings. Also, no, Newsroom, I remember.
This is going to be a little funny thing. So, that was obviously the scuffle last week between Ross the Boss saying the Gold Coast Suns are the Nepo Babies in the AFL
Here we go.
and Damien Hardwick and the CEO of Gold Coast fighting back, saying that they should focus on their own backyard. It was a bit disrespectful and yada, yada, yada. And the best response from the Gold Coast Suns all year was the fact that they decided to debut their own Nepo Baby in Leo Lombard on Tuesday. Fuck you, Gold Coast. Fuck you. Why? This is just the cherry on top. This is rubbing your head in the dirt. This is kicking a man when he's down. Why? Why, I tell you, why?
What, you
Oh,
just don't
well,
like
that's
Leo
enough.
Lombard?
Kicked the goal on the weekend, had a funny celebration. That's about it. I did have him for Rising Star, I believe, as well, which is ironic.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bem rants.
Bem rants.
Bem rants.
Ben Rants.
That was a crazy Bem rant. That was
not
insane.
Ben Pants, Ben Rants.
That was a crazy rant. My God. That was absolutely brutal.
Ridiculous.
Oh, here's the hit. There it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's careless as hell. I don't know if you could gauge it as intentional.
He's left his feet. He
Yeah, I
jumped
get that.
after he gets rid of it.
Oh, yeah, that one looks a bit more
Yeah.
like it. 'Cause
He's
you could
good to
argue
bump
he's
him.
looking. I was going to say you could argue he's just going for the bump.
He's
but
gone to bump him whilst the play's already being tackled.
Definitely some weeks.
So 3
it
weeks.
should be at least.
And
Oh my God, with the way it's
he's-
been so far.
He's already been suspended once, and that was in round 1. So
Yeah.
fuck you, Aiden Johnson. You almost concussed my favourite player of all time.
Man, a lot of hatred for him this time
100%.
around.
Fuck
Let's
that ball
move
bloke.
to the power rankings.
Yeah.
So, have you got yours done?
I've got them done.
Oh, lovely. All right,
Yes.
we're going to go through this a bit quicker than we did in round 6 because that's the last time we did our power rankings. I'm
Aw.
interested to see. I think we had the exact same top 3 or same top 4. That is not what we're up to.
Producer, you had your good moments. Get back. Good boy.
God, he's tried showing off too much this week.
Jeez, those photos.
They are pretty good. They're up there. All right. Who have you got in the 18th position? We better have the same one.
Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide. I put West Coast.
No. West Coast have won in their last 3 games. Port Adelaide haven't.
Yeah, but at least Port Adelaide have won more than once.
This is over the last thing. This is power rankings. This is not ranking their season. This is ranking teams.
I get that.
form.
No, I get that.
So,
I don't know how you put Port last.
what do you mean? They've been absolutely deplorable.
They have been bad, don't get me wrong.
They have been shocking.
Yeah.
They've not just been bad. I can't open the ladder for whatever
Okay,
reason
so
right now.
their power rankings, they beat North, right? In the last 5, I'm going to look through the last 5 games. Very start, they beat North. But you put them last
Yeah,
with North losing to them
yeah.
in the most recent 5 games.
North almost beat
Then,
Brisbane.
of course, yeah, I get that, but whatever. Dogs beat them by 90.
90 points.
Crows beat them by 5.
Came back late to almost win it.
Then Cats beat them by 39, but it was the Cats. And then they lost to Freo by 49. So there are some bad performances in
Really
there, but
bad.
I don't think
Their last. Their
bad enough for 18th.
yes,
That's
I
insane.
think so.
I've got
I
West
think so.
Coast just because, right, they have won a game. They did get a good one against St Kilda, took their opportunity, but it's just the same old for West Coast and just have been not good enough to see themselves
Yeah.
rise up yet.
Yeah. So who's you got West Coast in your 18th?
Mhm.
I've got 17th West Coast. I think a good performance against Geelong. Good performance against St Kilda to get the win, which Port Adelaide didn't do. So there you go. Suck shit. Who did they play last week? They Yeah, okay, they didn't play well, really, but almost beat Richmond and then pushed Melbourne somewhat far. So I think, in terms of a bad team, they're in okay form.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. But if you haven't won
They've won a game in their last
outside of
4 weeks.
one game,
They've won a game in the last 4 weeks and almost beat Geelong.
yeah, but they've also won the same amount of games as Port Adelaide have in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, so that's why they're above them, because you have to add in that extra week.
Whatever. I think,
Yeah, you know I'm right.
No, that
you
is
know
so
I'm
wrong.
right.
That is so wrong. All right, who have you got in 16? Oh, wait, no, I haven't even said my 17.
Who's your 17?
North Melbourne. They have been, look, they've been close, but their only win as of recent has been against Richmond.
Yep.
The draw against Brisbane, obviously, is something to be happy about. But outside of that, I don't think a draw is enough to shoot them up, despite it being against last year's premiers. And despite some close ones here and there, I still believe that these guys are still off from the top. You could argue, or at least you'd make the argument for who I've got at 16. But, yeah, I think North Melbourne probably best to stay a bit on the low with these guys. I don't think they have played well enough to get themselves too much higher, like even outside of the bottom 4. If you argued outside of the bottom 4, I'd probably be a bit confused with that one.
That's why I have them as 16th.
Yeah, fair. That's completely fair. My 16th is Sydney. They have had one of those wins against Carlton.
I have them 15th.
Yeah, so I mean, there's arguments to be made, but a lot of big losses. You could argue for sure that a team like Port Adelaide could be below them. They had their win against GWS, then a loss against Essendon, win against Carlton, a loss against Melbourne, who were pretty low for me, and obviously the big loss against Adelaide. So there's many reasons to put them low. I think that just how big those losses have been have kept them pretty low. And it's why I can't see them going above even Richmond. I think Richmond's one of those ones that they show a lot of fight. They show a hell of a lot more fight, especially more than the likes of West Coast and North Melbourne at the moment, despite how much you liked West Coast's performance on the weekend.
Fair. Yeah, the reason I got Sydney 15, I just don't see them really. We've talked about them in depth, actually, so there's no need to talk about them anymore.
My 15 is currently Richmond.
Okay, I've got them 14th.
Man, you've got them one above everywhere.
Yeah, because I got
Port Adelaide
at
has
18th.
really messed this up.
I got Port Adelaide at 18th. Where have you got Port Adelaide?
14.
Okay.
Richmond is at 15. Definitely could be higher if they just snuck that win against GWS. They should have. They'd be higher than Port if they had done so. And you could argue that the performance nonetheless was enough to do so, but you've missed out on the 4 points. The loss against Essendon really exposed a lot to me as to how inexperienced and how reliant they are on almost setting it up from square one every single time. And while they've had some good performances, the win against West Coast, the one to highlight, they are still that young, gritty team that needs to string a few together in order for them to burst out of that bottom 4, bottom 6 type.
I'm not happy that you've got Port Adelaide over Richmond. Richmond lost by 3 points. Lost by 3, lost by 23, lost by 4.
What the hell is this?
Thanks, mate. Love you too.
He's going to be changing it up.
You're actually getting choked out after this. You're actually getting choked out after this.
Go on. So you're 14 being Richmond.
Yeah, my 14 being Richmond. I think they're in good form. Like, they haven't been blown out in the last 4 games. They've won one of them. Should have won 2 more, arguably, as well. I think they're in very good form in terms of how they're playing.
You've got to play well against them. That's for sure. They're going to give you their best every time.
Yeah.
Port Adelaide, yeah, for me at 14, the obvious ones that you've mentioned. And I did fight hard to put Richmond about a little higher than 14, or a little higher than Port, should I say. But again, not winning that one has my kind of second guesses. I think Port Adelaide, despite how poor they've been, still have a lot more of an upside with their play than Richmond does. Richmond are very bare bones, while Port Adelaide look to try and expand their play every single time. And sure, it's not paying off, and that's why you could argue that they could be lower than Richmond, but I still think Port have been playing at a better rate.
Fair. 13, I got St Kilda.
13, I got Carlton.
I got Carlton a little bit above.
Yeah, that's fair.
Listen, since round 6, so we're considering that Brisbane loss, the Fremantle win, the Carlton loss, the West Coast loss, and then the
Something, I don't know. Either way, GWS. GWS, they most recently lost to Carlton, then lost to Sydney. They beat St Kilda.
Who are we
Lost to
talking
Adelaide.
about?
Oh, you're talking about St Kilda. My bad.
Jesus. Schizo.
Sorry.
Schizo.
I'm having a moment again.
Yes,
Yeah, lost to Gold
we
Coast,
know,
lost to West
Sinara.
Coast.
Gold Coast, that's who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then coming out and beating Melbourne. I don't think we were that good against 3 out of those 4 teams, and we were all right against Gold Coast. We played well against Fremantle, obviously, to blow them out of the park. But then, had Melbourne have kicked straight, I don't think we'd have won that game. So I think that's a questionable win, and that's sort of why I've got them at the bottom end of that middle team section.
That's fair. Mine was, Carlton. So pretty much the obvious ones that you've seen. So their loss to Sydney is one to point out nowadays. Their loss to GWS. Of course, they lost to Adelaide in a pretty embarrassing fashion. They beat St Kilda, which is fine. And the Geelong win, which I think keeps them out of the bottom 4, because you could argue they're bottom 4 without that win. So from there, number 12, I've got Melbourne.
Essendon.
Melbourne, for me, have been risers because of just their recent form. I think they were even higher than this before this round until they lost to you guys. So hence why I think your guys are in the position that Melbourne was for me. But again, positive signs. We were counting these guys out. We were thinking from the get-go of the season they were a boom or bust team, thinking that they were busting, but... Pause.
Pause.
Yeah, I know. Man, that was bad.
Pause.
But yeah, Melbourne, they are unfortunately hitting the middle of the road that I didn't see coming from them. So, I mean, good form, but not great. That's a good shot. That's a good photo.
Nice one. I'm going to kill you, Ethan.
So your number 12 was, sorry again?
Essendon. Got them, again, middle of the pack. I just don't see them having good enough performances for the most part, right? Barely beat North Melbourne, barely beat West Coast, barely beat Sydney, who aren't looking that good right now. Got whacked by Bulldogs, barely beat Richmond, I'd say, and then performed really well against Brisbane without a lot of players. But yeah, I just such frauds. How are you updating it live on this same slide? I don't get it.
All right. Well, for me, I had Essendon at 11.
Who'd you have at 12?
Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
Essendon at 11. They've been doing enough to keep themselves here, realistically. They haven't been doing all that much to put them much higher.
No.
Like you had mentioned, the close wins against bad teams.
And then they've won to not put them lower.
Exactly. Their percentage is really low for a team who have won as many times as they have. So it does give me a lot of worries for them as a team, whether they're going to be battle-tested enough. Look, if the game gets close, they're absolutely worth a sniff against any team because they've had enough of them. They've had a lot of them so far this season.
Thanks, mate.
That's a beautiful photo. That's from last week. Check that out after this once we're done. But Essendon.
Check out Fancast AFL with Northey as the guest.
Yeah, I guess so.
Don't check it out after we're done.
They're great blokes. They're great blokes.
Sorry,
do not diss Fancast. But Essendon, 11, pretty close to middle of the road.
Yeah,
a little bit off the pace. Even though they definitely, if they just won more convincingly, they'd be a bit higher.
No, but this is Essendon. 11, I've got Carlton. Talked enough. Oh no.
Mate, if you want us to get through this podcast quicker, stop doing this stuff.
If you didn't know, he complains about us going for an hour 15. He's making us go for an hour and a half this week. Let's just elongate it. Let's make it as annoying as possible for him.
No, go 11. Who have you got 11?
Carlton. Yeah, fair enough. We talked about them a little bit.
Pretty much said the same things. What have you got at 10?
Well, I was so with Carlton. Beat Geelong. Got done by Adelaide. Beat St Kilda. Got done by Sydney. Again, not looking good. Got done by GWS. Not looking good. So, again, mixed results, but I think the wins they did have put them above the wins Essendon had. Yeah. So, that's why. 10, you won't like who I've got, or you'll be very intrigued to who I have. Try guess them.
You got the Dogs?
No.
I'm trying to think if I don't like them. Who have you got? Hawthorn?
Yes, I got Hawthorn in 10.
That's not a bad pick. I'm okay with that. A little bit lower.
They're just not there right now.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's as simple as that.
They're missing the likes of Will Day. He clearly brings a lot of structure to that team.
But again, when you're speaking about injured players, they're not the only one.
Yeah, I know.
You cannot base everything around Will Day. That's just not how your system works.
100%.
But I think their key backs, they're missing out on Tom Barras, the way his form has been this year. I mentioned that he relies on Jeremy McGovern, and he might. And
He's got a very distinct role.
yeah,
The
but
problem is when he doesn't have someone playing that intercept marking role alongside him that McGovern kind of did.
yeah,
I'm trying to think who
He's
on
just a
Hawthorn
lockdown.
is kind of like... He
He-
used to be
he
Sicily.
used to be. He's dog shit now.
Yeah, he's awful now.
And guess what?
What?
Hate watch on Josh Battle. This weekend was awesome. Awesome.
Oh, my God.
He directly led to 5 goals for Collingwood.
Makes you so happy, doesn't it?
Not like, oh, it was a poor errant handball and they had 2 disposals before. Literally directly led to 5 goals.
The hate watch is insane.
Awesome week for me.
Well, for me, I had at number 10, St Kilda.
We should not be that high.
I mean, you could argue they shouldn't be that high with the West Coast loss, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
a lot of really, really decent performances in the midst of that.
Is there?
Not a bad performance against Gold Coast.
Got done by Brisbane. All good performance against Fremantle. Wasn't good against Carlton. Was not good against West Coast. All right against Gold Coast. And then beat
A win
Melbourne.
against a surging Melbourne.
Yeah, up in Darwin. There's shit up there.
I guess so.
I
Look,
don't
I've got
wanna be
Melbourne
that
at
high.
12. The thing is, I've got Melbourne
Yeah.
at 12.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
probably-
kind of why I wanted to push
I would have
St.
loved
Kilda
to
a
have
bit
been
higher.
down 12. Would have loved it.
Mm-hmm. For me, number 9 was Hawthorn, and pretty much for the same reasons you have. They're in a bit of
Mhm.
poor stretch of form. My guarantee of them being top 4 is looking worse and worse by the week, which is fantastic. I'm glad that the first season that we do this podcast, I'm that awful at predictions.
Yeah,
but
guess what? I had Adelaide and Gold Coast in the 8. I don't care if I hadn't put Adelaide in the top 4. I had Adelaide and
no,
Gold Coast
I'll
in the...
remember that one forever.
No, you won't. You won't remember it by next week.
I didn't have Gold Coast in the 8, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. Suck shit.
Yeah, but I didn't say that the team in the bottom 4 was going to be a top 4 team.
Shh. I definitely also didn't say Sydney would be first.
Man, your tips look awesome, bro. Well done. Good stuff.
Everyone has their good and bad.
I can't wait to look at them at the end of the year. Yeah.
We should do
Hawthorn
that
at
next
9.
week where we take a look.
No, I want to do it closer to the end of the year
Oh, okay.
because then it'll look even funnier. Yikes. All right, who have you got at 9?
Fremantle. Topsy and
Completely
turvy
fair.
team.
Completely fair.
Can't trust them any week, to be honest. Like, everyone had Gold Coast winning this week. They come out and win. Everyone had them beating Melbourne. They come out and lose.
It is,
Do they?
unfortunately. Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
the
they did.
case. No,
Yeah.
they lost by 10, I think it was, to Melbourne. But yeah, for me, I then put Fremantle at 8.
Mhm. Yeah.
Only reason they're not in 9 is because of how poor Hawthorn has looked over the
Yeah.
last recent stretch. And sure, it's a bit unfair because it's been against Brisbane and it's been against Collingwood. That's probably something we can point out. But at the same time, they've also looked a bit unimpressive in their
Yeah.
wins. So,
Remove Sean Darcy and you move up a spot.
man, the hate watch on Sean Darcy as well.
no,
What
no,
did
no.
he
The
do?
hate watch on Josh Battle. I just don't like Sean Darcy.
Fair enough, I guess. But yeah, Fremantle, they are currently the definition of mid this year.
Yep.
I think the term I used last week on the Fancast thing was free mid-tall, something like that. Dead set most mid team in the league right now. But at the same time, a fantastic win against a really top side. So great to see.
Yeah.
You just, like all teams seem to be doing this season, they just can't beat the bad teams.
So that was your 9?
That was Fremantle was my 8.
Fremantle, your 8. Who was your 9 again? Hawthorn.
Hawthorn.
My 8 was Melbourne. I think
Wow.
they've won 5 out of the last 7. Had accuracy of not cost them, they would have won 6 out of their last 7.
Yeah,
So when you
7
speak-
for 21.
When you speak on form, that's impressive. I
Yeah.
think
Where were they before the St Kilda loss?
they beat Sydney, they beat Brisbane, they lost to Hawthorn, which at that time was still a reasonable loss, and then they beat West Coast. So their only loss with Hawthorn. They beat Fremantle and they beat... Who else did they beat? I'm trying to remember. I think they beat Richmond, maybe. They haven't played the best of opponent, but I think the way their form's back, Oliver looked really good. Aside from St Kilda game, Petrarca looked really good. About to get Viney back. Pickett, he's played 2 really good games. Like, I think for the most part, their form has been pretty good, and that's why I've got them sliding in above Fremantle and Hawthorn.
Beautiful. For me, 7, I've got GWS. They're also a team that's been very topsy-turvy, but we just
Same.
know what their best looks like. They're
Yeah.
one of the few teams that have beaten Collingwood as well.
I reckon we could have a
obviously,
top 7.
Power
That's-
rankings is
Yeah.
like, we can't think about the Collingwood thing. But
Yeah. Top 7, I reckon we could have almost identical.
do you want to go like 3, 2, 1 and just list
No.
them? Okay, fine.
Actually,
Don't
let's do
have
it.
one
Let's
then.
do it for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In a minute, though. Let's talk about GWS.
Have you got GWS at 7?
7.
Yep.
Yep.
So GWS, why have you put them there?
Can't trust them.
Mhm.
Like, they don't have a lot of players out realistically. Like, they now lost Callum Ward, but aside from Jake Stringer not being there, who's arguably not best 22, and Finn Callahan, it's not too many outs. Their key forwards aren't really firing together. They might fire individually, but they're not firing together. And their key backs, whilst being super talented, they always get a lot of ball down there in their back line. But for the most part, they've been able to defend it. However, they haven't been recently. And so I think Taylor's lost form, Buckley's lost form. They've all lost form together, and that's a bit of an issue.
They've dropped a lot of really gettable ones too
Yeah,
against the teams
exactly.
in the top echelon.
Almost did it again.
Yeah, exactly. So for GWS's sake, they're in the top 8 in the power rankings so far, so their form isn't all that bad. They're still pretty reliable, but not reliable as people really would like them to be, especially if you're a Giants fan.
Yeah, I think the way I'd put it, would GWS beat Melbourne right now? I'd still argue yes. Would Melbourne beat Fremantle? It's a really close one, but it'd be at home or away. That's the only difference I have. And when you look at the bankable wins, Melbourne have had more over the last 6 weeks than Fremantle.
Yep.
So that's sort of how I do it. Who would beat who?
All right, let's kind of rapid fire this. So 6
Bulldogs.
Bulldogs. Fantastic.
Let's go.
Dogs coming off a bye, and I think off a loss the previous week.
Let me check.
I can't
Bulldogs. Somehow they're 9th, which is really
Yeah, no,
interesting.
I was
Yeah,
very
they lost
surprised
to
by that.
Geelong.
Yeah, that's right. A very commendable loss to
Yeah.
Geelong at GMHBA. So like,
Their 2 losses they have had are very commendable. Gold Coast up there and Geelong, both by under 15 points.
the form has been really good. There's still a lot to be excited about. There's still a team that I like to think of as a potential smoky this year.
Yes. However, if you're going to make the grand final, more than likely you're going to need to be top 4, if not top 6. They're 9th.
Yeah.
And they've been great this year. And so that's the only concern I have.
I hope for their sake they don't have the hiccups that a lot of teams have had this year.
Yeah.
Lots of high performers too, so they could be
They're-
a bit prone to it.
Yeah, the percentage tells you how good they are.
Yeah.
And that's important.
5. Gold Coast.
5 Gold Coast.
Fantastic. We're on a roll here.
On a roll.
So they are down a little bit for me because of their most recent loss. But other than that, their form was looking really good. The 2 great wins up at Darwin in Hawthorn and Dogs. So those are 2 sides in the top 8
Yep.
or was in the top 8. Probably should be and will be next week. We'll find out. But Gold Coast's loss to Fremantle just gave me a lot of the yips despite them being in the top 8 for the power rankings for me. This was, again, a gettable game, and it's just really ruined that excitement that I had for this thing because I'm like, they're actually doing it, but then you're like, but they could easily go out in straight sets. They could easily lose a home elimination final. Like, it so could happen. So, unfortunately for Gold Coast, they just show too many signs of a pretender for me. So many people have said these guys are premiership contenders. I just don't see it yet.
No,
I still don't see it, and this Fremantle week really cemented that for me.
Agreed.
Good form for sure, but
yeah, like aside if you move this week like against Fremantle, they would probably be top 3. I'd argue.
Yep.
But
4.
it just sours it. 4 and 3 for me are really difficult to separate.
4 Adelaide.
I had Geelong.
Ooh, we have a
4.
very different top 4.
3 and 4 for me is Brisbane and Geelong, and I really struggled to separate who was who. But
so
I'm interested to see.
4 is Geelong, yes?
4 is Geelong.
Yeah.
Brisbane is 3.
I had Brisbane 3.
Yeah. So you would have okay.
Because I think we know where it goes from there.
Yeah. This is the thing. I don't think they were that good against West Coast for Geelong. A really impressive performance to get the win over a raging Bulldogs team. However, their defense continues to disappoint. I think structurally, specifically, wallop the floor with Port Adelaide. Lost
but you
to
also
Gold.
have to understand they are one of the 2 teams who have beaten Collingwood.
I know, but
And it's not like they've dropped form massively since that
they
win.
also could have just as easily lost that game.
I get that, but they walked away
They've
with the
been-
4 points.
They've been in a lot of close games. That's my point. West Coast could have easily been a close game against a reasonable opponent, that performance. Bulldogs, close game. GWS, close game. Pies close game. A lot of them have been close. That's the way I'm arguing. Like, that's why I don't think they're top 4 in this, no, top 3 in this power ranking, is because aside from the last 5 minutes against West Coast, it hasn't shown enough long enough throughout games.
I have Adelaide at 4 purely because of a few of their hiccups. There's still the questions. The fantastic win against Sydney was always a great thing. They just looked like they were flying. But the few occasional ones, if I double check on the ladder here, so the one loss as of recent has been against Collingwood.
Yeah.
So you can definitely argue for these guys to be higher. And I think that's why you've got them at 2, if I'm correct.
Correct.
So a lot of really good things, but a 5-point win against Port.
Mm-hmm.
The 60-point win against Carlton, fantastic. The West Coast game had in control the entire time, and the Sydney game. So there's absolutely an argument for that, but there's still the questions of the forward line. They've had some losses here and there that have had me question it. But in terms of the best possible form, I'm looking at the teams above them, and you could maybe argue for a 3 and 4 switch around.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, 3 is Brisbane. Brisbane absolutely could find themselves in the 4th position with their draw to North Melbourne, their loss to Melbourne. But then you have a look at the teams that they beat, and then the form that they just pick up straight away, that their convincing win against Hawthorn, and their most recent one against Essendon that didn't look all that great, but then you think they beat Gold Coast. There's another big one that you can put in there, another pretty high, top tier, top 4 contending team. So while there is a part of me that wants to put Brisbane at 4 and Adelaide at 3, I'm sticking with the current way it's going because I think that Brisbane's best in this recent stretch of form is still better than Adelaide's best.
I just don't think they've shown it enough. Similar to Geelong, but also they haven't been that good in the last 6 weeks. We've said it before that they have shown weakness in their last few weeks, Brisbane, right? The game against Essendon, they really struggled with at times, right? They got over the line against Hawthorn in a 10-minute stretch for the most part. Lost to Melbourne at home in a really good performance. Draw to North Melbourne where they were deplorable.
Yeah,
they
were really
could
bad.
not kick at all. And then got a good win against Gold Coast, right? So still up there, but I think there's an argument that they shouldn't be top 2 off of the fact that some of their performances have not been that good.
Understood. For me, 2 is Geelong, and again, it comes down to the idea that their best has been fantastic. Right, I knew that this team would find a way to be this good.
Yeah.
I've said it since the go. It's just the way Geelong does it. Jeremy Cameron is finally starting to get goal-kicking form. Again, a bit of a fraud 5, but nonetheless, he's had some really good ones against the Dogs. That Dogs one is going to be fantastic.
You heard it here first. Rhys, Macca, McLaren believes Jeremy Cameron's a fraud.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. He's a YouTuber too,
exactly,
you know. He's
exactly
a YouTuber too. I need a Jeremy Cameron.
Yeah, let's collab with Jeremy Cameron.
Please don't ruin this opportunity for me.
Dart, come on the board.
But Geelong, they've been fantastic. Again, I look back at that win against Collingwood. You say it can go either way, but at the same time, that is a fantastic win. But of course, for both of us, number 1 is Geelong because their form is impeccable. So you've got Collingwood at 1, correct?
You said Geelong.
No, I meant Collingwood.
Okay.
Collingwood's at 1.
Okay.
Their form has been impeccable.
Are you sure?
Am I sure their form is impeccable?
Just taking the mick out you, mate.
Yeah, you do it often, don't you? You float. Collingwood doing really, really well. There's no real argument for them being any lower than 1 with the way they've been playing, especially
we've talked about them heaps. Let's not talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I hate Collingwood.
Yes, they should not be here.
But that is our power ranking. So, just to quickly recap the top 4, I had Collingwood, Geelong, Brisbane, Adelaide. And you had Collingwood, Adelaide, Brisbane, Geelong.
Quick little review on the 2 bye teams, just to piss off producer Ethan. St Kilda, please be shit in the second half. Fremantle, please make it 1 ruck only. Both your seasons have been inconsistent as shit. No one wants to watch either of you play, so be shit. I suppose is the best way to put it.
That's you'd be a motivating coach, I'll tell you what.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'd do a better speech than Cullen Wood every day of the week.
Yeah, man, for sure. Let's have a look at our previews for the upcoming round 13. Let's have a look at the Thursday, Bulldogs versus Hawks. This was up there for a game we wanted to look at in depth, but with Hawthorn's poor form, Dogs coming off a rest, do Hawthorn finally pick it back up?
They'd be hoping so.
Yeah, I know. They'd be hoping so. Dogs matchups and the way that they play, the rotation all over the ground. I think the Dogs are going to run away with this one.
Darcy won't be back, but he's going to be back soon. Adam Treloar should be back for this week. So even more support in this midfield
I feel like
against a team that doesn't have midfield support.
This is Dogs by 50.
Only concern is this is a game that Hawthorn do come back and just pull out of their arse because they're going to.
We going free kick Hawthorn again?
Yeah, but so are Bulldogs. It's also free kick Bulldogs.
Yeah.
People don't understand that.
Who is going to take the money? Who's going to offer more money to the refs before the game is really the big question of this one. But
yeah,
Bulldogs, I'm saying by 50 here.
Bulldogs by 50.
I think it's going to be a big Bulldogs win.
I don't want to go the upset because I've gone too many upsets recently and watch this week be the upset. I'll go Dogs by 19 in a really good game, though. Really good game.
Crows versus Lions. This is going to be our big one of the week, but of course we rambled too far with the power rankings. I believe this one has got the Crows written on it.
At home. There we are. They are at home. They've got an incredibly good percentage. But Brisbane on a week where they'd want to prove themselves as the top, I don't know. Because I could see this week being where they, hey, 40 won't win. Brisbane, get out and just say, this is who we are. But I could also see this being a little bit of a wake-up call for them. Look at the form Adelaide's in. I think this is a good win that they could get, I believe, before their bye.
They would love a win here.
100%. This would cement them as a top 4 lock in the second half of the year. Let me just double-check who their bye is next week. No, they've got a bye in round 16 or 15.
Okay, so they've got a little bit longer to go.
Yeah, round 15.
Either way, Crows, I think their form is really, really good.
Yeah,
we talked about how they could be interchangeable. This is basically the one that decides whether I'm right or you're right.
And as things have found out, I've been right most of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Shut up.
Who are
Next
you going with?
game.
Who are you
We're
going
moving on to
with?
the next game.
Who are you going
Moving
with?
on to the next game.
Who are you going with?
I'm going Adelaide by... I think it's going to be a close one. 12 points.
12 points. I've gone Adelaide by 27.
Saturday, June 7th, starts off with Richmond, Sydney. This is going to be fun.
Why did you go with the day and date?
I don't know. I was just looking at through here, so I wanted to say the date.
Okay.
Okay. Richmond is going to win. I think this is Richmond's the win. I think the matchups, I think the matchups are actually going to help out Richmond's way.
They beat them last year.
Yeah, they did, but it's more the fact that Sydney are so reliant on those two to bring them up. I think the rest of their team at the moment is on Richmond's level outside of like Blakey, Grundy, those obvious ones. Richmond have shown that they can bring it to the best of the teams. Why can't they win this game? I don't see a reason.
I agree with you, but I don't know if I should tip them. I've got too much faith in Sydney. And will Sydney bounce back?
You love using that word, don't you?
I did that specifically for you.
Richmond are going to take this one by 5 points.
I'm going a draw.
That's a good guess. I actually like that. I actually really like that one.
I actually couldn't tell you who's going to win this game.
Geelong versus Gold Coast at GMHBA. This is a really interesting one. Just
very interesting game.
Gold Coast at GMHBA.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard that one for a good while.
There might be 5 people here.
For Gold Coast.
For both teams.
It's a 5 versus 4 matchup, man.
Bailey Smith, you're going to get 4K like Ballarat. Woohoo!
Yeah, I hope this is a Ballarat turnout. That'll be so funny. I think this is going to go Geelong's way. Again, it's me not trusting Gold Coast. And also, I can't confirm it because I don't know that far back when Gold Coast have played at GMHBA, but surely they're not used to playing on a ground like this.
Nah, surely not.
They'd obviously have to train in that sense and learn to it, but it's a different field. It's a different game that you've got to play against these guys. And I think with the fact that obviously not many teams have played Geelong at GMHBA, but you think of the teams like GWS, they've adapted to it. They've learned how to play at that ground. Gold Coast shown so many flip-flop signs. I do not have faith in them winning this one. Neither do the odds. They're pretty heavy underdogs for
what odds?
$3 too.
I'm putting money on that. Let's go.
I'm going Geelong by 35.
35. See, this is me not having faith in Geelong because I hate Geelong, but also having too much faith in Gold Coast and thinking that tough trip, West Coast back to here. Gold Coast are going to want to have a really good performance. It's going to be Dimmer versus Chris Scott, which is always nice to watch. I'm going Suns by 3 points in what is going to be the game of the round.
Ooh, exciting. All right.
Yeah.
GWS versus Port Adelaide at Manuka.
Is this even...
Not Manuka, like the honey, as Ethan had let me know. Manuka.
Shut up, producer.
GWS versus Port. This sign is
95.
95. I think it's going to be closer than that. I think it's going to be
Really?
20 to GWS.
Yeah.
I think it's GWS wins,
Easy.
but I think Port could make this close.
Yeah.
We'll go North versus West Coast. This is one that I have to tip my way. I have to. I can have no faith, but I have to tip it my way.
Yeah.
I so see West Coast winning this one. I so see West Coast winning this one.
They had a good performance and they never follow up a good performance. So I'm going to go Roos by 32 points.
I'm going to go Rouge by 25.
Jeez, within a goal.
Yep.
Blues Dons. Clash of the former Titans. But they're both shit nowadays.
Clash of the mid.
Literally clash of the mid. Blues by 60.
Oh my God.
Dead set. How are they going to be able to stop Mackay, DeConing and the Rock, and be able to compete with
That's a good
Kerno?
shout. They're going to have
and
no
Wiedering
clearance
down
wins.
back?
They're going to have no clearance wins. I
Literally.
think Merritt's going to have to... there's going to be a point where Merritt has to go back.
45 and 30 goals. That's all he could do.
45 and 30 goals.
Yeah, and he still wouldn't win.
I'm going to go... Carlton by... I don't think by that much. By 30.
Yeah, I don't trust Essendon. And their midfield, like, DeConing will absolutely torture Goldstein around the ground. It won't be fun for Goldie as a 37-year-old.
So run with TDK. Yeah.
And their forward line is not going to do anything against this Carlton backline. So,
yeah. And then finally,
tough game.
Melbourne versus Collingwood.
Melbourne, win.
Yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you? I want to say it too now. I hate you. Collingwood. I reckon they take this one. Until they have a down week, I can't tip against them. Collingwood are going to win this one by...
Don't
40.
fall asleep.
40.
Yeah, see, Pickett's going to torture them. They don't really, like, Sidebottom's not going to be able to go with Pickett, and he's their tagger.
No time for costs. Got to end.
D's by 11 on a Queen's birthday classic.
If you can't tell, that is our sign that we need to finish up. He is so ready to go home. Again, be sure to like and subscribe to Zero Access Footy and the podcast itself. He's fully done.
Hey, we do have another podcast after this.
This is a producer crash out. But yes, leave a like, subscribe. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify and iHeartRadio and Amazon Music, all of that type. Be sure to subscribe to all of us.
Bye.
Thanks so much. I'll see you all later. I gotta go.